At Arm's Length, Episode 12. You had to come for things to finally start happening. I still can't believe it. Her aunt looked at her, her usual chirpy demeanor gone. They were seated in the living room after Gabrielle had been made to repeat what Alex had told her several times. She did not share what she had found out from the interviews she had conducted. Her mind was still working non-stop, trying to piece everything together, knowing that some key pieces of the puzzle were still missing. Who did he say is in charge of the investigation? Asked Ivan. We need to call him. Elise, go there and speak to him. Make them understand how important this is. He didn't say, Gabrielle replied. Call him and ask him, her grandmother urged her. Ron Mayor, I'm afraid I will not be seeing Alexander Jacobs again. He had no right to interfere and call the police, not without telling me first. The two women turned their attention to her, and she looked back at them, unable to hide just how angry she still was. Why would you say that? Do you know how difficult it is to get the police to take a closer look at a cold case with all that they have on their hands? Alex just waltzed in, used his connections, and the case is open again. You've evidently been doing some snooping around. What was your plan to find real evidence? You think someone can just come up to my house and tell me that she thinks there might be a bullet embedded in my wall and ask if it's okay for her to break through the wall she thinks it might be in case she finds it? With all that you hear happening on the news? Elise asked her. I was going to ask a neighbor to introduce me to the tenant so I could explain my suspicions and ask if I could look. But don't you see that what he did was way better? He went with the police and they had no problem getting in. Now they'll focus on the crime and give it the attention it deserves. Alex gave us credibility. Surely you must see that. Please, find out who's in charge like Maman said. I need to go and see that person before a more important case comes up and ours is once again buried underneath a stack of files. We can't afford to wait another 27 years. Auntie Elise, I can give you his number and you can call him directly. Maybe tomorrow I'll see it from your point of view, but I can't today. Gabrielle was itching to leave them and call her father. She suddenly felt like she could not trust anyone and had to be careful about what she said and to whom. Yes, give it to me. I'll call him. I hope you didn't say terrible things that you can't get back from. She eyed her niece as she said the last part. Gabrielle sent her a message with the contact and her aunt left the room to make the call. I'm going to the kitchen. I need a cup of tea. Do you want one? I'll make it for you, Grandmère. The young woman left to do so. She needed to keep busy. She heard her aunt return to the living room and turn around to ask if she'd like one too. She's worried about her father, she heard her grandmother say to her aunt, which made her stop just before reaching the living room. If he did anything to Sophie, her aunt warned, determination in her voice. We need to tread carefully. Her father is almost all she has known till this moment, and whatever he did, I'm not going to lose her too. Keep your visit to the police station just between us. I want to avoid any possible tense situation or having to make her choose. You are right. This isn't easy for anyone. Gabrielle heard the kettle boil and decided not to ask if her aunt wanted tea and to just take an extra cup. It seemed that everyone was keeping secrets. Father, they found a bullet! As soon as her aunt had left, she'd escaped to her room and called the house. There was a brief silence from the other end of the line. Alexander called me to ask the exact position of the furniture, her father told her. He told me he asked the police to intervene. And you told him? How could you think that was a good idea? She asked, raising her voice in fear. I did. One thing is going to meet your mother's relatives and trying to reconcile yourself with the past. Another very different thing is to put yourself in harm's way. Why on earth did you not go to the police yourself? I wanted to find out more, discover who the culprit was, clear your name. Now they will be all over you. Clear my name? You think I would harm your mother? I mean, I know that we've spent very little time together and are practically strangers. But do you honestly think that I would shoot your mother in cold blood, dispose of her body, and then go and pick you up from school? No, I don't. That's why I'm worried. People are convinced that you did it. Elise is going to see the police officer in charge of the investigation. What do you think she's going to tell them? What if your alibi isn't as solid as you think it is? I am going to Benin myself and to that police station. They need to find out what happened. Whoever did this must pay. No, father, please don't come. You are recovering still. And what if it's someone that just wants to close the case quickly, doesn't investigate properly, and you get locked up? No, Gabrielle, I'll be there tomorrow. Book me a hotel. The line went dead, indicating that her father had hung up. Gabrielle paced up and down and called Sandra, worried as different worst-case scenarios flashed through her mind. She told her all that had been happening, desperate for some advice. Can't you go with him, please? I need you to be there and assess the situation. I can be there in 2 days' time. If you can stop him from speaking to the police, I'll gladly call the officer and arrange a time and a date and go with him. For what it's worth, your father will be called on at some point, so it's not such a bad idea that he goes there voluntarily. I think he can also put pressure on them to speed things up. I can't believe Alex did this. Gabby, when you calm down, I know you'll see that it was not at all a bad idea. This situation needed a catalyst, and it got it. Wait, did you know about it? Gabrielle asked in surprise. Yes, he told me the day before they went to the house. Look, I know you're going to get angry with me and will be tempted to cut me out of your life, but I know that I love you and I would never do anything that is not in your best interest. You do know that, right? Gabrielle did not have the energy to get angry. All she felt was worry and dread. There was no space for anything else. She needed to think. I know. I have to go now. Please make the arrangements for your trip to Benin in 2 days' time. I'll tell my father that you'll be going with him to the station, having called beforehand. Alex can give you the details of the officer in charge of the investigation. She reached under her pillow and held onto her rosary beads, like they seemed to have been for her mother so many years before. They were a huge comfort to her at that time. The tears in her eyes blinded her for a moment as her lips moved in prayer. She got up and knelt down next to her bed. Feeling a movement beside her, she turned around and saw her grandmother was kneeling beside her and had joined her in prayer. What if this destroyed them all? Maybe Paul was right, she thought. Not for the first time. Sometimes it was not worth revisiting the past. Madame, that car's following us, Peter informed her as he observed her through the rearview mirror. Which car? She turned around in alarm. That grey one. It's 2 cars behind ours. I saw it parked outside your house when I arrived. It left when we did, and has been going in our same direction. Wait, let me take a left turn here and see if they do the same thing. Gabrielle held her breath as Peter did what he had just indicated. Sure enough, the other car did the same. Her heart pounded, and her mind raced as she deliberated onto what to do. Let's not get worried. Just go to the airport as we planned. We're going to pick up my father and take him to his hotel. Whoever it is will see that we're not up to anything. Peter, I know you don't want to get into trouble, so I don't mind using another car service. Maybe it's better you don't drive me anymore. Madame, I can't leave you alone with those people. What if they try to do something to you? No. Tomorrow, when we go to those villages, I'll shake them off. Don't worry. Nobody knows the city like I do. I have a cousin that runs a hair salon. From her back door, you can cut across to another street. I'll drop you there and meet you in the next street. We will lose them. Don't worry. Gabrielle nodded, unable to utter a word, feeling sick to her stomach. If those men were dangerous and something happened to Peter's wife or his baby, she would never be able to forgive herself. Now her father was coming. How many more people would be put in danger? She needed to be very watchful and perhaps tell the police about it too. She would tell Sandra to mention it discreetly in her visit the next day. Airports held sad memories for her. She remembered leaving for London many years before, feeling she had not been wanted, that she was being sent away. Then during the few holidays she had been allowed back, each time she crossed the boarding gates, there was a feeling that it could be the last time, and that overwhelmed her. She held onto the railing at the arrival gate, trying to catch a glimpse of the interior each time the sliding doors opened. Soon, the familiar figure of the man in his usual traditional attire of a kaftan shirt and trousers became visible. She smiled and waved at him. He looked healthy, way better than the last time she had seen him. She was walking towards him when, to her dismay, she saw that pushing a trolley packed full of suitcases was Antonia, flanked by Deborah. "You didn't think I would let your father come alone, did you?" was the greeting she received from his ex-secretary, who had evidently understood the thoughts that had gone through her mind when she had seen both women. Gabrielle forced a smile and acknowledged her presence. "Hello, Antonia. You I certainly did not expect to see. What made you decide to embark on what promises to be a torturous family reunion?" "I had no intention on missing out on whatever drama is about to unfold, watching everything explode in your face. Plus, I heard Alexander Jacobs is in town. I intend to marry him, so it's important that he doesn't lose focus, and I'm here to see to that. As always, your support is much appreciated. Regarding the other issue, is he aware of your plans?" Gabrielle asked her half-sister. "Not yet. He just needs to be pointed in the right direction. Is it a coincidence that you're both here?" They had arrived at the car, and Peter was putting the luggage in the boot. Antonia waited for the answer to her question, not bothering to hide the open hostility she felt towards Gabrielle. "Antonia, we'll talk later. I'm going to get another car, so you can all be more comfortable in this one. Peter, take them to the hotel. I'll be right behind you." The man nodded. She approached the line of waiting taxis and climbed into one, giving the driver directions. Discreetly, looking back, she noticed the grey car was following her. So they did notice the car change, she thought, biting her lip and looking outside the window with a worried look on her face. She tried to think of something else, but the next topic that popped up in her mind was the animosity Antonia felt towards her. For the life of her, she could not understand why. Her sister had always enjoyed her father's company, been raised up in a home with both parents, and had been given everything she wanted. What was the problem? It was definitely not because of Alexander, as her meeting him was a recent event. Hopefully, being away from Lagos would give them a chance to talk, though she had no idea when, because all her energy was centered around finding out who killed her mother. The car slowed down to enter the car park of the hotel, and she paid the driver, a young burly man who'd sang at the top of his voice to the CD he put on as soon as she had gotten into his car. If nothing else, It had been entertaining and distracting. Do you do pickups? Is there a number I can reach you at? Yes, madame. I can pick you up and drive you wherever you want to go. Here's my number and your change. Thank you. Keep the change. He expressed his gratitude, turned the car around and drove away. She walked towards the lobby where her father and his entourage were waiting. She had made the reservation, so walked up to the front desk to check them in, add an extra room, and escort them to their accommodation. I got a call from your friend Sandra, her father told her. She made an appointment with Inspector Osunde for tomorrow at 11. I hope that man is bright and efficient. If not, I'll ask for someone else to replace him. I'm glad you agreed to wait for Sandra. She's the best criminal lawyer you can find and is accustomed to dealing with police investigations. Andrew, why don't you go in and get settled? I'd like to have a word with Gabrielle, Deborah said. Her father nodded and went into his room, which was adjoining to Deborah and Antonia's. I appreciate that you went through the trouble of getting your friend down here to protect your father. But the irony is not lost to me, that he wouldn't be in this situation if you hadn't meddled. Was it so difficult to let things be? Gabrielle observed the woman, looking at her gravely. If my father shared your opinion, he wouldn't be here. Maybe you can let an injustice go, but I refuse to let my mother's reputation continue to be tainted, or worse still, allow a murderer to have the luxury of sleeping easily at night after getting away with what he or she did for so many years. So Daddy, at his age, finds himself in the middle of a murder investigation and needing a lawyer because you decided to play detective. Are you bored or something? Antonia asked. Antonia, you came because you wanted to. Please, don't feel the need to involve yourself in my affairs. Father is even more eager than I am to find out the truth. I have to go now. I hope you're both able to get some rest. Deborah, in the end, it's a good thing you came. Being a witness at the time, I am sure the police will also want to speak with you. And if you ask nicely, maybe Sandra can also be present. Ladies? Gabrielle smiled at them and turned away. Once back in the car, she gave Peter instructions as to where he was to take her. The shop girl was different from the one who she had seen on her previous visit to the establishment. On her way to the cash register, where she was located, Gabrielle looked around, happy to see that the imitations of her bags were not still on display. Good morning, madame. May I assist you with anything? I'd like to see Mrs. Egosa, please. Oh, she's not here at the moment. She went to collect a container that just arrived with her goods. Do you know when she'll be back? I don't think it will be much longer. She left first thing in the morning. I'll drop by in a short while, Gabrielle said to the shop assistant. Who shall I say called? The girl asked. Just tell her an old friend. Gabrielle next asked Peter to take her to the beauty center that Loveth owned and ran. The woman was looking over the sales book with a member of her staff. She came towards her, beaming, and hugged her. Gabrielle, you've been on my mind constantly since our last meeting. I wasn't sure if you'd gone back to Lagos or not. It's good to see you. You must accept a manicure today. I insist. I'll do it myself. The woman led her to a freestand, and Gabrielle dutifully laid out her hands. I came to tell you that yesterday, a team from the police went to the house we lived in at the time everything happened, and they found a bullet in the wall. This was done because someone told us that on the day she was last seen, she heard what she believed was the sound of a gunshot. The shock was apparent on Loveth's face, and she knocked over an open bottle of nail polish, its red liquid staining the white table. Gabrielle noticed how it resembled a puddle of blood. The woman hastily put the bottle upright and cleaned the stain with nail varnish remover, not taking her eyes off her as she tried to process what she had just heard. Someone shot her? She stared at her in horror, realization setting in. Yes, they will probably call you in for questioning, but it had to be someone that knew that she was unexpectedly home that day. Steve, it had to be him. What did he do with Sophie? You have to tell the police about him. He should be arrested. I intend to. I just need to tie up a few loose ends first. I just wanted to let you know. I have to go now. I don't think it's the best day to paint my nails, she said, observing Loveth's shaky hands. The woman looked down and clasped them together. Gabrielle got up to leave, and Loveth touched her shoulder. Does Elise know? She does. She found out yesterday, as did my grandmother. Loveth nodded, a faraway look on her face, and Gabrielle left. She returned to the shop. The sales girl was taking out different kinds of fabrics enclosed in transparent plastic bags from a box and placing them on the counter. She looked up at her and pointed to the corner of the room where the woman she was looking for was putting price tags on some items. Gabrielle Ibrahim, a second visit in such a short time. As you can see, I'm very busy. You need to be brief. I can't stop to entertain you and your fantasies at the moment. The police have found a bullet and opened an investigation into the murder of my mother. I know you were there that day, which is how you got your husband to marry you after stalling for 15 years. I want to know what happened. You owe me that much. Shock she had expected, but not the look of fear on the face of the other woman, who made various attempts to speak, but words seemed to fail her. The grey car was 2 cars behind them again. Gabrielle was nervous after having spoken to Sandra, who had arrived on a very early flight that morning, even though she had assured her that everything was under control. Her aunt had met up with the inspector the previous day, and they were waiting for the results from the lab. They were also comparing the bullets they'd recovered with evidence from other crime scenes. The man had assured her that the case would not remain unsolved. They would do their best to find out what happened. Gabrielle had not told anyone what her plans for that day were. The police reopening the investigation would probably result in the murderer destroying whatever incriminating evidence was left, so she needed to act swiftly if she wanted answers and justice. Madame, that's the hair salon, said Peter. My cousin's expecting you, and she'll show you the way out. I'll be waiting for you on the other streets like we agreed. Gabrielle got out of the car and walked into the salon. A woman was busy checking the hair of a girl who was under a standing hair steamer, and another was braiding the hair of another customer. As soon as she noticed the newcomer, the woman braiding the hair excused herself and walked towards her. Good morning, madame. I'm Sheila, Peter's cousin. I'll show you the other exit as he asked me to. Good morning. I'd like to wait a few minutes, please. I'm going to sit down and I'll let you know when I'm ready. Thank you. The woman nodded and went back to her customer while Gabrielle picked up a magazine. About 2 minutes later, a man came into the salon, looked around and asked what time the establishment normally remained open until, saying that he would bring his sister later on. He studied the price list on the counter and left. Gabrielle waited for 2 more minutes and signaled to Sheila, who proceeded to escort her to the back door. Navigating through the muddy dirt paths between the houses as she made her way to the agreed meeting point, Gabrielle was really glad that she had chosen to wear covered shoes and not sandals. Peter waved at her from the parked car, and she headed in his direction. Peter, I think we have to be careful. I can't bear to think that my activities could put you or your family at risk. We don't know who the men trailing us are, or what their intentions might be. I've made alternate arrangements and will search for Samuel on my own. But my family is around, so I need you to pick up my father and friend from his hotel and take them to the police station and wherever they wish to go afterwards. Here's the address, and this is for you. Thank you so much for your help and for looking out for me. I'm really grateful. She handed the man an envelope. He opened his mouth in protest at the unexpected change of plans. No, madame. Let me take you as planned. It's you they are following. After dropping you off yesterday, I saw the car parked down the street and it stayed there. This morning, it was there again and it hasn't been anywhere near my house. Let me stay with you. What if something happens? If something happens to me, I'll be glad that you weren't with me. Peter, please do as I ask. Look, my car's here. This will soon be over. One way or another. Once again, thank you so much. She hurried into the waiting car, not giving him a chance to say anything more. The driver had his very loud music on again, which was a distraction from her thoughts. Gabrielle told him where she wanted to go. So, madame, you don't know where this Samuel lives? No. I have his old address, but I was told he moved nearby. Do you know the area? I know it very well, madame. My wife is from a nearby village, and we stop by every year on the way to mine for Christmas. We can drive to nearby villages. At least we know his full name. In small places, it's easier to find people. Gabrielle nodded. At that point, she had nothing to lose. She reclined on the back seat and closed her eyes, trying to drown out the thoughts of what Isoke Egosa had revealed the previous evening. Tears threatened to fall down her face. She had not made an attempt to stop them alone in her room the previous night. But she had to be strong now. They spent a few hours going to small settlements and villages located within a reasonable radius of Samuel's original place of residence. They asked around, but nobody knew anyone by that name. Joshua, are you sure that we've been to everywhere nearby? She asked the man, her feet aching when they had walked the street of the last village that had evidently grown quite a lot, judging by the modern style of some of the houses. Yes, madame. There's nowhere else. If we go further, we will enter into another state. You said it was in this one. Look, there's a canteen there. I'm sure you're hungry. Let's get something to eat. The man's face lit up on hearing her words, since they had been walking for hours. They sat down in the small canteen, which was quite hot, as they had been apart hot since the early hours of the morning, as the woman serving them explained apologetically. Gabrielle was not hungry, but asked for a drink, which was slightly cool. It was brought out from a drum filled with water that had at one point been ice. Joshua, understanding that she was paying, looked at her for permission, then asked the woman for vegetable soup, heaped with all sorts of meat and fish. I'll sit down on the bench outside under that tree and wait for you. The moving leaves give the impression that there might be some breeze there, she said, doubtfully, as she observed the scorching sun. Still, she needed to be alone. She held the drink to her face for a moment as she sat on the wooden bench. The day had been wasted. Samuel was a very important witness, and she needed to find him. She should have known that things were never that easy. She smiled to herself as she thought that they actually hadn't been that easy. Knocking on doors, not understanding what was being said when the person who answered spoke only the local dialect. Good thing Joshua was with her to act as a translator. It was quite pleasant under the tree, once one put the heat aside. She found herself with a magazine that she had taken out from the car. Looking at it closely, she saw that it was the program to the funeral service of a woman. She decided to get acquainted with it to pass away the time until Joshua's return. The sound of approaching footsteps reached her, but she did not look up from what she was reading. Someone was probably going into the canteen. The person was whistling, a sign of contentment, she thought. The tune was familiar. She had heard it somewhere before. But where? Gabrielle's heart started beating faster. It was a nursery rhyme. She had not heard it in a very long time, but that whistling was familiar. She looked up at the man just before he disappeared from sight. He appeared to be in his mid-40s, plump and almost bald. He proffered a greeting to the owner of the canteen from the door. "John, you are late today. I kept your favorite for you. I made it this morning with fresh fish, just like you like it." "Ah, Mama Joy, I trust you. You always have my back." John, not Samuel, she thought in disappointment. But the tune kept repeating itself in her head, and the feeling of familiarity did not go away. "Madame, I've finished. Where do you want us to go now?" "Let's wait. There's a man that came in. I'm not sure, but I think it might be him. I want to follow him. I know it's just a hunch, but we have nothing to lose." "Did he drive here?" Joshua looked around. There were a few cars parked near the canteen. "I didn't hear a car, but I didn't notice him until he was quite near." "Did you see him?" The woman serving said she'd reserved food for him. "Yes, he sat down a few tables from me." "Madame, sit in the car. I'll switch on the air conditioning for you. It's really hot." Gabrielle did not say no to the offer, and she observed the canteen through the window as Joshua had moved the car to give her a better vantage point. Half an hour later, the man emerged from the canteen and disappeared into a sandy street. "Madame, it's better I follow him. You look very conspicuous. It's evident that you are not from these parts." Gabrielle was about to protest, but saw his point and nodded. 10 minutes later, a sweaty Joshua got back into the car and waited a few moments for the air conditioning to take effect before being able to speak. "I followed him to his house. It's a bungalow with a high fence at the end of the street. I'll drive you there." A feeling of trepidation had come over her, and once the car was parked outside the yellow brick wall surrounding the house, she got out and pounded on the metallic gate with her closed fist. A few moments later, the man she had seen earlier opened it and peered at her. "Samuel Asemota? I'm Gabrielle Ibrahim. You worked in our house many years ago." The man had been caught completely off guard, and he looked at her, mouth agape, seemingly unable to find a suitable reaction to her unexpected visit. "I wondered if I could come in and ask you a few questions. I came into Benin about 2 weeks ago and went to my old house, and someone told me you worked there for a while. I wanted to talk to you, if that's not a problem," she requested as she smiled at him. The man opened the door wider, still unable to utter a word, and let her in. Gabrielle walked behind him into the house, not quite believing that she had finally found him. To stay up to date with my latest episodes, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications.